mistakes.
Sure,
Somebody nimbler than
exactly.
Hutchinson would have got the ball.
You're a bit cross now when he ripped his shirt.
Oh
Feels
yeah,
like-
well he's not been
yeah.
sent off before, and it was one mistake. And say somebody bigger than nimbler than Hutchinson would have got the ball anyway. I think. I think Hutchinson's lost his nimbility.
Yeah, he's not the same player, is he?
He's not. He's not. No.
Imbility. That's
Nimbility. Yeah, I mean we blew it when with that Birmingham, Rotherham and Luton
Wigan.
games, because out of those we should have got a comfortable 5 points, which would have denied Rotherham and Birmingham a couple of points apiece as well. But that's football, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
I think you're seeing, John, in this unusual pandemic environment.
No, we're just looking for that other book.
Yeah.
With those that
Oh, right.
Yes, Dave. Sorry, yes, Ian. Yeah.
The psychology of football. When you're down, you're really down. When you're up, you're up. I mean,
Yeah.
Liverpool just implode. United have found an extra, I know, second wind or whatever, and they're playing really well.
Yeah.
City started badly, but
Follow.
teams almost are at extremes, and you're getting extreme
Nothing is
results.
counted.
You know,
Yeah. It's
and
a
I
bizarre season.
it's really bizarre.
Take book. It's all right. It's your book.
Who's
I
that?
mean, if United had played like this all season, not like Saturday's performance, but these last few weeks, they'd have been in mid-table, wouldn't they?
Yeah. There's something in the season that keeps you going, whether it's crowd or whatever, I don't know. But there'd be none of that this season, and everybody's either just completely collapsed or taking the advantage. And United,
The absence of a crowd made a big difference to everybody in a variety of ways.
yeah.
Sometimes a crowd can be negative, and sometimes it can G you up at the right time.
yeah.
Yeah. Right. Shall we crack on then?
Not with more sports of the week, for goodness sake.
Yeah. John, you're going to do a piece about Sheffield Wednesday.
Well, I'll do something that's slightly depressing for Wednesday nights, but United might find it more amusing. For a long time, I've had a bee in my bonnet about really good strikers that we've lost through no fault of our own, certainly not the supporters' fault. Like losing Derek Dooley, for instance, top of his game, arguably top striker in the country at the time. Losing Bronco Lane, yeah, it was his fault, but for Wednesday nights, we'd got nothing to do with it, and we lost arguably, well, one of the best two strikers, maybe the best striker in the game at that time. He'd scored 60 goals in the First Division in 2 seasons. This is blooming good going. David Ford at his peak, not one of the best in the world, but a top striker on his day, and then had that horrendous car crash that knocked him back totally. And David Earth having severe ankle trouble following rough treatment from Tony Adams and who that other Arsenal centre off. Not Keown. Steve Bold, yeah.
Keown.
He was never the same player again. 4 top strikers. Anyway, so I'm actually writing something about that, but I didn't. But I had a look online and I came across an amazing site called Injury, Illness and Death, Sheffield Wednesday FC History. So,
Is that your motto?
that's my motto. Injury, illness and death.
Conceal it and this, is it?
So make what you will of these. A variety of grim and nasties that have befallen the Owls since in 1899, George Lee broke his leg in the infamous 3rd round cup tie with United. See, it started that early. The United hearts remember that. Yeah. In 1901 against Notts County away, goalie Frank Stubbs gives an inexplicably bad second half display as Wednesday go down 6-1, only to find afterwards that he'd suffered a first half concussion and he didn't know where he was, who he was, anything like that. 1902, Walsall Town, we played at home. In the middle of the league game, the Walsall keeper claims compensation from Wednesday after he claims his false teeth are broken during the match that Wednesday refused to pay. Isn't that typical of Wednesday, eh? Not honouring the responsibilities.
Cheapskate.
Cheap.
My God.
Yeah. In
Oh.
1921, the 18th player, George Pennington, dies of pneumonia. I don't think that was during the game, but it seems to suggest that he did. But I doubt that very much.
It might have been a striker waiting for a pass, John.
Very true, very true. 1922, winger Charles Binney has a nervous breakdown.
Oh, that must
Oh, dear.
and he was at centre half that match.
Yeah, we know how that feels, don't we?
No,
In
he went- he
1923,
was another
Tom
striker.
Armitage is seriously injured during the Christmas Day Warncliffe Charity Cup match. He's rushed to hospital but dies before New Year. See, it's a bit of battle of laughs being a Wednesday night. If it wasn't for bad luck, we wouldn't have no luck at all. 1931, Billy Marsden receives an injury while playing for England and is forced to retire. Wednesday received £2,000 from the FA in compensation. Blimey, that was lucky, wasn't it? 2,000 quid at that time. Yeah.
Cheapskates.
1937 versus Norwich City. Harry Ware has his jaw broken. It says here by a canary. Has his jaw broken by a canary.
Been a big one.
You were flying at the time.
No, that is bad luck, isn't it? Eh?
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, in an off-the-ball incident. 1938, a car crash. A car containing Ted Catlin, and Fallon crashes into a telegraph pole. They shouldn't have moved him out so much. It's a telegraph pole sold them a dummy on Penistone Road and they rushed to hospital. Fortunately, they didn't die. Yeah. 1947, a motorcycle accident. Jackie Marriott, not the one who's playing for us now, or is he? Crashes his motorcycle and injures his ankle. In 1947, the chairman dies. The Blackpool chairman, who was at Hillsborough as a guest, that'll teach him. That's courting disaster, isn't it? Collapses and dies after the Fulham match. He'd never seen anything like it, and then he went. In 1948, Eddie Kilshaw, the record £20,000 buy from Bury at the start of the season, dislocates his knee after 19 matches. The injury ends his career. Wednesday luck, there you go. 1949, opening match disaster as Dennis Woodhead breaks his leg against Liverpool and Albert Morton, the reserve team goalie, breaks his leg against Wolves. That's on the same day. 1949, Doug Fletcher breaks his leg playing for the Army. 1950, Alf Rogers retires due to an arthritic hip. 1952 versus Preston away, Derek Dooley breaks his leg and in hospital gangrene sets in and his leg is amputated. Dooley's just 23 years old. Yeah.
That's
In 1953, against Preston away, again, the Preston jinx hits again as Dave McIntosh breaks his arm and Norman Curtis has to go in goal. Yeah, so somebody had told me that, and I looked this up and it's turned out to be true, but now I can't find the source, that another Wednesday player, pre-Dooley, had broken his leg and had to have his leg amputated. But I've forgotten who it is.
Was
Dougie
that
Macmillan.
Doug
Macmillan.
Macmillan?
No, that's a little bit. I'm coming to that.
No, no.
Dave. I think it would be before Dooley. But 1960, 1960 versus Arsenal. The Owls coach crashes on the A1. Peter Swan breaks his shoulder, but reserve player Dougie Macmillan is trapped and has his leg amputated. Actually, on the coach. Can you imagine anything so horrific? Well, you can, but it's pretty bad, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did they play the match, John?
Pardon?
Did they play the match?
No, I think it was
No.
just a reserve, a travelling reserve.
Oh, right.
Oh, he was on the way home.
No, after. Right.
Yeah, and Dougie Macmillan was singing at the front of the coach, like I would have been, of course.
Yeah.
Badly. And then there you go, terrible disaster. 1964 against Bremen, David Ford is stretchered up on his debut and misses the whole of the season. In 1964 against Burnley, Mark Pearson breaks his leg, and his first match back after recovery is against Liverpool. He breaks his leg again. He broke his leg twice in 2 successive games, and I believe he tried to carry on playing with a broken leg.
Is that
Yeah,
Pancho Pearson?
Pardon?
Yeah.
Pancho
Pancho.
Pearson.
Pancho Pearson.
Pancho, yeah. Mark
Yeah.
Yeah, John, didn't he actually finish both those games and didn't realise
Yes.
he'd broken
Yeah,
his
didn't realise he'd broken his leg. Yeah, incredible. Then we played away against FC Cologne in City's Fairs Cup, and we were losing 3-0. And in the last 10 minutes, he scored 2 goals direct from a corner. So we thought we were in with a chance until they came to Hillsborough and beat us. Yeah.
I bet that caused a stink.
Cologne, very good, Keith. Yeah, but his last game for Wednesday, that, going back to Mark Pancho Pearson. 1967, David Ford crashes on Red Myers Road. He's out for 10 weeks, but his fiancée is killed.
John,
Yeah,
you mentioned the disaster in '66.
the cup final we're talking about.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. The event that shaped my life and made me permanently depressed, the permanently depressed Wednesday. I've never suffered pain like it. Horrible. Thank you for reminding me.
It's okay.
I know where you live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll see you in your bathroom.
You were only in my bathroom catching carpet bath, weren't you?
When you were 2-0 up, we were in pain.
Yeah, I bet you were. Yeah. Paul Bradshaw, 1978, Paul Bradshaw retires due to injury. 1982, Ian Bailey breaks his leg. He says against Brighton, but it wasn't. It was against Blackpool the week before the FA Cup semi-final.
It wasn't. It was against Bury. It was
I think it
against
was against
Bury. I was
Blackpool.
at the match.
Well, yeah, I thought it was Blackpool. Are you
I
sure it
think
was at
you'll
Blackpool?
find it was against Bury at Bury because I was at the match.
Yeah, we've got 3 different chances there. I'll look that up, Ron. Thank you.
Begin with B.
Anyway, the week before the semi, he breaks his leg. He threw us into, and Jack Charlton made one of his worst decisions with his team selection the following week. Charlie Williamson should have played at left back, but he didn't.
Who did?
And I've just run out of juice on me. You'll be glad to know. I think that's enough depression, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's enough depression.
you've
I've
cheered
only
it.
got a couple more, like David Hurst being wrecked by Steve Bull. I just thought it'd cheer Unitedites up and remind Wednesdayites how much of a reason we've got to be depressed. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Tremendous, John.
Who was the guy, Ian somebody, who broke his leg against Chester, was it?
Oh, yeah, that's it. Ian Knighton.
That's right.
He lived four
Ian
doors.
Knight.
Ian Knight, sorry. Ian Knight, I'm thinking of Ken Knighton. Ian Knight, thank you for reminding me about that. Paul,
Don't think of
because
Ken
it's
Knighton.
arguably, well, it's the most horrific
Yeah.
challenge and leg damage I've ever witnessed on a pitch.
You could hear the crack.
Yeah, the Chester player actually stamped on his leg and shattered his leg in about at least 4 places. And he was close to actually dying on the pitch. He was losing blood, and the game was playing on, wasn't it, Dave?
Yeah.
The game was playing on for what seemed like an age, and then he received treatment. We'd bought him from Barnsley, and he was an England under 23, I think he would be at that time, player.
Yeah.
An England under 23 player with a great future. He came back months later with one leg an inch and a half shorter than the other. And although he carried on playing, and I think he actually did really, I forget who we moved to, he couldn't play at our esteem level at that time, but it wrecked his career, and it was an awful challenge. Didn't even get a free kick, let alone a booking or a sending off.
No.
Anyway, thanks for reminding me about that, Paul. It was the most horrific thing I've seen.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
So we'll move swiftly on to Chris, because Chris has come up with one of his amazing statistics that it is the 40th anniversary of one of sports' big rivalries, really. In only rivalry, but at the time it was a big rivalry. So I'll leave Chris to explain.
Okay, thanks, Keith. I was just looking at a few things, and it's this week is the 40th anniversary of one of the key matches in cricket history, which is West Indies versus England in Barbados in the 1981 series. And the reason I remembered it is family reasons, really, because it's the first time I ever went to an away game to see England play cricket or England play anything. My dad had been to Barbados the year or so before, and we decided we'd go as a family. So my first aircraft journey, my first visit abroad, was to go to Barbados, which is quite staggering. It's 40 years ago. And when I mention this to Keith, you can't believe how those years pass. No. This game nearly didn't take place. When we arrived for a holiday and to watch the game, this game was subject to all the foreign ministers of the Caribbean meeting in Barbados to decide whether the series would continue, because the second test match had been abandoned without a ball being bowled due to the Robin Jackman affair. Jackman was a very good pace bowler, came in to replace Bob Willis, who was injured, but some journalists investigated his background and found that A, he'd got a South African wife, and B, he played quite a lot of cricket as a pro cricketer in South Africa. And they got to the point where the government said, if he plays, the game is off. So he was going to play and the game was off. So we go to Barbados not even knowing if the game will take place. The Barbadians managed to calm everybody down, as they often do, and the game does take place. And it was known for that over. If you refer to something as that over, you're referring to Holding, Michael Holding versus Boycott. And it's had books written about it. It's had all sorts of articles written about it. According to Jeff, in his own book, which was a bestseller at the time, Boycott on Cricket, this is the fastest over possibly bowled, fastest 6 consecutive balls bowled probably ever. And I was privileged, my first event, I'm watching this. So I'm watching Jeff Boycott try to take on Holding in the second over of England's reply to the West Indies. And he played and missed or fended off the first 5. And the 6th ball did that. It cartwheeled his stump out of the ground and for naught. And to all intents and purposes, the West Indies and the fans in the ground thought that was game over. Well, it did prove to be a big moment, and I'll never forget that as long as I live. I count myself very privileged. There were quite a few English people there. It was the beginning of travelling to watch games abroad, so there were quite a few English people watching. But in those days, the ground was basically full of West Indians, and they went absolutely crazy. I mean, they were falling off roofs, they were in trees, and they were falling out the trees. They were the joy on the island was like you could feel it. England were all out for 122, and the manager Ken Barrington witnessed that demise and died that evening. So how they continued the match, I don't know. How England managed to continue, I don't know. It was a tremendously sad thing that happened, but they did continue. They made a fist of it, but they lost by a long way. And so when I think back 40 years ago, there was the prospects of going but not seeing a game because of Robin Jackman. Then we saw, I would say, the fastest over, certainly in living memory, amongst expert players. And then dear Ken Barrington, who was admired and respected by the whole cricket world, he passed away. I look back at the game, and these are some of the other things which quickly, Keith, I saw. Clive Lloyd in the first innings, captain of West Indies, got 100 It was fantastic. He dug the West Indies out of a hole, and his driving and his power hitting was just incredible. In the second innings, Viv Richards got 182 to really win the game for the West Indies. That was breathtaking because you couldn't bowl at him. Wherever you bowled at him, he hit the ball basically for 4. In England's second innings, I saw Graham Gooch get 116 going in first against that attack. David Gower got 54. They were the only players that got a score. The bowling attack for the West Indies in that game was Colin Croft, Michael Holding, Andy Roberts, and Joel Garner. No spinners. That's it. Those 4 rotated. They came at you relentlessly every over. And again, that was what a privilege as a younger man to see that happen in front of you, those 4. I saw Greenwich and Haynes open the batting for the West Indies.
Okay.
Statistically up there with the best openers of all time. I saw Gooch and Boycott, not for long, but I did see Gooch and Boycott open innings. Anyone know how many Jeff got in the second innings?
2.
Not quite. Jeff got 1. He got 1 in the second innings, and he was out to the 5th ball that Michael Holding bowled to him. But that's another story. The
Chris,
captain
can I mention something.
Chris.
Yes.
Yes. I once went to a talk by Graham Gooch, and he talked about that particular game.
Right.
And he said that when Michael Holding was walking back to his at the start of his run-up, he said, "I've never seen a bloke go as far back." He said he was almost at the boundary rope. He said, "I didn't used to go that far on my holidays."
Well, it may sound like an exaggeration, but Paul, it wasn't an exaggeration. That's how far back he was going. And when he started, you couldn't hear him. There was no sound.
Yeah.
You just running across the turf, and then all in the action and the just magnificent, fantastic. Keith, I haven't got a lot to add, but I just thought it's an anniversary of a great sporting moment, and I was lucky enough through sheer fluke, through having a holiday, to see that, and
an amazing experience, Chris.
An amazing thing to say that you actually saw. My love of autograph hunting comes from my dad. This is the program for the match.
Yeah.
Right. My dad got 49 autographs in that program for the match. And I don't know how much that's worth, but whoa. And have I got time to say, Keith, 6 people who signed that program?
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay. Wes Hall.
Yeah.
Godfrey Evans, Canai, Boycott, Viv Richards, Joel Garner, Gooch, Botham, Gatting, Greenwich, Lloyd, Miller, and Gower, and a few others. But there's 49 autographs. So respect to my dad. His love of cricket took him all the way to Barbados.
Right.
Brilliant.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
No problem.
Ian.
Just one thing, Chris.
Yeah.
All the names you mentioned. There's 2 words you mentioned there. One is privilege, and the other one was Haynes.
Was what?
Haynes, as in Desmond Haynes.
Oh, Haynes, Desmond. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It was when I was in the industry and I did some procurement with the MOD. One of my clients said, "Your lads growing up, you live in Basingstoke, why don't you get a country membership to Lords? It's very cheap." I was actually just inside the perimeter, so I got a normal membership. But I went there. One day, there was Desmond Haynes probably on the mid-wicket boundary.
Right, playing for Middlesex.
This is the privilege bit. We were privileged, my son and I, to have a conversation that between overs must have lasted about half an hour with this guy.
Wow.
And he was just relaxed. No ego or anything, just such a... And the whole West Indies team seemed to be right. Clive Lloyd, who I'd met some years earlier, was so relaxed. I mean, my dad used to say, this is politically incorrect, but I think that man's prehensile, because he was so languid. You just see a ball and whack it.
And Desmond came from the most humble village
Absolute, and
that you could ever go to and hardly realise you're in a village.
and everybody.
And that's how humble he was from there.
Absolutely, they all were. They all. I mean, in Lancashire we had a good team in that time with Farouk Engineer and Clive Lloyd, Barry, and Bumble and the rest of it.
Yeah.
But
Barry Wood.
Barry Wood, Clive Lloyd was, and it rolling forward 10, 15, 20 years later, Desmond Haynes, they just had this sort of aura about them. You listen, you hung on every word, every utterance.
Yeah.
And they were quietly spoken, all the rest of it. Brilliant people.
Until they got together in the dressing room, then it got very noisy.
Yes. Oh, some of the banter amongst the Lancashire lads. Barry Wood and Clive Lloyd especially. Ridiculous. I can't repeat it on air.
Well, thank you for letting me share that, because it is one of my all-time sporting memories of being in front of that sort of clientele of people. It was
Brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
Right. Well, on the same theme, was anyone
It
else?
does raise a question, Chris.
Yeah.
What on earth's happened to West Indian cricket?
Well, they thought it would never end. So there was no structure in place once the natural talent began to get older.
Yeah.
And other things happened, and culturally things changed. And now they've got a massive rebuilding under people like Jimmy Adams, who I have total confidence in as the leader of the West Indies board. I think he will do a great job. And there are some signs that they're getting the youth players right. But it's a long old process, and you know, beware, if you're at the top, you've still got to invest in what's going to happen.
Yeah,
and they didn't do that.
Possibly because athletics became more and more popular in the West Indies.
Well, satellite television happened as well.
Satellite television introduced basketball to the West Indies.
Yeah,
and
it did.
The young people there aspired to be basketball players in the NBA rather than cricketers.
There's more interest in the Premier League than there is in, I dare say, in some cricket. That might be a sweeping statement, but you know where I'm coming from.
Right.
And so all these things dilute your natural pool of talent. When you think that the West Indies team frequently had 4 or 5 Barbadians, and the population of the island is 300,000, that tells you something about natural ability. You know,
it must be a big pull from the United States with all the money and the rest of it. Because
I suppose there is. I suppose there is, Ian. Yeah.
Right. It beggars the question: has anybody else been at an event or witnessed a sporting matchup?
Before that, Keith, can I just share a couple of things with you that my daughter bought me for my birthday last week?
Yes.
I don't know if you can see that. That's Albert Quick. It's Football Monthly. Albert. 1954.
Yeah.
That's not the one that went missing from library, is it?
Oh yeah. And of course, Ron.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Football Monthly, March 1960. Obviously.
Wow.
How many of us used to regularly read the Football Monthly?
Yeah.
Every month.
Oh, yeah.
Tremendous magazine. I preferred that to Topical Times. I mean, I got Topical Times annual and Football Monthly annual, but on a regular basis, the Football Monthly was my favourite. Charles Buchan's Football Monthly. Just to read it cover to cover.
Yeah.
Yes, Big Paul.
John, talking about your birthday last week, you held up something with a barn owl on. What was that about? Because I'm interested. I'm really interested in raptors.
Oh yeah. I can't remember what I held up. I thought you were going to be
a barn owl. I don't know.
Oh, that was it was a simple placemat.
Oh right. I didn't know whether it was a picture or what.
Didn't think it
No,
was
it was a placemat. I was just going to show you one with a puffin on, but there, it was a placemat. People,
No specific, nothing specific about it. And no.
nothing specific about that, no. But I've got a collection of owl artifacts. People seem to think because I'm a Wednesday, I like owls. Fortunately, I do. I do like owls. I do like birds. And I've got lots of pictures and ornaments and various carvings of owls.
Yeah.
But the
I
barn owls
just
are
wondered if it was
particularly
anything significant to do with
it's a
the
particularly
bird.
beautiful bird, isn't it, Paul?
Yeah.
The barn owl.
Yeah.
John.
Yeah.
John, your reference to magazines, just something slipped in my brain, but humour me.
Not tidbits.
Well, whatever. It was, you call it a green un, but
Yeah.
in Liverpool it was the Pink Echo. And
Yeah.
when I
And
used
it
to
was in
go
Manchester.
after school, because I was at Saturday school, I'd go to my nana's for tea. My Uncle Joe was there. Like a lot of Liverpool, he had a shaft of wit, and he used to say, "Go and get the Pink Echo." So go and get the Pink Echo.
Yeah.
And there was always a spot the ball competition.
Yes, yeah.
And he did it. He had it in his lapel. He pulled out this pin, and when everybody else was talking at the tea table, he just nudged me because I was gullible, and he'd just go, "Listen, listen, listen." And I said, "What am I listening for?" I'd fall for it every time. Listening for the psst.
Yeah, that's good. In the 1920s in Sheffield, there were pink uns and green uns, and my dad always told me the story. He was born down Attercliffe, and he used to sell I think it was the pink uns on a Saturday night. But the pink uns were twopence and the green uns were a penny. So obviously the green uns went first, and my dad was sometimes till midnight catching people coming out of the pub to try and sell his last pink uns.
They were essential reading. It was
Definitely.
upbringing. Like the news used to get a football match with perforated edges, and you'd have a number in it. It was the big goal of the minute or something.
That's right. That's right. I've forgotten those.
Hang on, Chris, Dave.
Yeah, talking about spot the ball. Can you remember where they used to have a section of the crowd with a ring round?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
And if it was you, you won a ticket.
What got me to spot the ball, Dave, was that you mentioned the crowd. They'd all be looking there. But the next week you look for the ball win and it'd be down there.
Yeah.
Yes, who else was Chris?
I was going to say, how many of you were queuing outside the paper shop waiting for the green uns to be delivered?
Every week.
I remember doing that in the 60s.
Only when they won.
Yeah.
Well, how many people, if your team were away and you couldn't get there, were outside Wigfalls watching their telly at 25?
And it's all been taken over by LOL's Sports of the Week.
Yeah.
Yes, somebody else, Chris.
Before I was old enough to play senior cricket, my job on a Saturday afternoon was to get the scores as they were in a cricket match, Retford versus whoever, go to a neighbour's house, telephone the green un, and a woman would take my copy down the phone, and then that part of the game would appear on Saturday night as what had happened up to the point of that phone call. Obviously, I got paid a bit for doing that, but I'll never forget though. And if you saw your own stuff in the paper, you thought it was marvellous.
Yeah.
We had a panic at half time at the football match. Sorry, Keith. We'd have a panic at half time, my mum and I, because we'd be so enthralled in the game of football, we'd lose the programme. And you needed the programme to decrypt the letters going round the ground with the Where's the programme? I don't know. You had it. I don't know. Absolute chaos.
By the way, that lady who took your results was called Christine.
Well, there you go.
It was.
Yeah.
She was called
She's
Christine.
like an oracle, ain't she? Like an oracle.
What, the person that took my scores, you mean?
Yes.
All right. You know that lady then, do you?
I knew that lady.
All right. Well, she was very, very good.
Yeah.
Oracle.
Right. So, anybody else got any? Well, just going back to you had the Charles Buchan Football Monthly. I mean,
yeah,
Favourites were the Dandy, Beano and Beezer.
Oh yeah, Topper,
Topper.
the Eagle,
Mm.
Rover,
Eagle.
Stingray out annual.
Stingray,
Yes.
Stingray,
Careful,
Stingray, Stingray.
Careful,
Roy of the
going
Rovers.
down the road with Patricia Driscoll.
Which one was Roy of the Rovers in?
Tiger,
Tiger, yeah, Tiger.
and then he had his own comic later
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
I once knew a girl called Marina.
Yeah, Marina, Aquamarina.
That's British Leyland.
I mean,
Rust buckets.
That's no way to talk about his
Is that the
girlfriend.
car called a Marina, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's amazing all the old books and that that you used to get at Christmas as well.
oh yeah, yeah.
There was always the
Anybody
annual-
remember Wally Brand, Ball of Fire? Limp Along Leslie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get away with
No.
that.
Used to be a
He's
sheep
still
farmer, didn't he?
He still
What
plays.
about
Did he play for Wednesday?
He's our fittest player.
when the Alf Tupper or something like
Alton
that?
Tupper,
Yes.
Tupper
And
and Strike.
Victor.
Yeah, he used to have
Yeah.
a fish and chip supper, sleep in a haystack, and go and beat the tops the next day.
Yeah. The,
Them
amazing.
were days.
Yeah.
Aye.
There's
Angling Times, Dave. You must have had
Oh,
a
yeah.
few angling times.
Yes, Angling Times.
Was it Crabtree who was a fisherman?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Fishing with Mr. Crabtree.
that's it. And you used to get those little books on roach or perch or
Yeah, that's
I had-
right, yeah.
there weren't Ian Allen, there was some other, but they were everybody had to never read them, but I had the whole batch of them.
Yeah. Right, chaps, we left a bit to go. So thank you again for another wonderful Tuesday.
Been great.
Well,
this week, yeah.
I'm sure
Well,
we'll
off
have
anyway.
more stuff to talk about next week. So I'll see you next week.
Adios,
Right,
amigos.
thank
See
you then.
soon.
Thank you. Yeah, cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.